Hi there, good afternoon.
Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar, Learn to Read, Read to Learn in Distance Learning. My name is Cristina Paredes.
And I'm Serena Merle.
And we are the founders of the company Teachers Who Take Passion for Learning. And we're here in our webinar because we want to talk to you about this so important part in education, which is learning how to read. Because this is so important for all of us. But before we start with this, I want to say congratulations and thank you to all the teachers who are today not working. You deserve to have this holiday. This holiday is especially for teachers who are working around the world, but in this country today. And we want you to know that we're so proud of all of the efforts that you're doing, all of the things that you are learning, all of the challenges that you face in this virtual learning, and then you're trying to always do more and more because you care about your students. And so we are so proud of all of you, and we thank you for everything that you're doing for this country and for the world.
Happy Labor Day. It's a break from work. Even though labor sounds like a woman having a baby.
Which I always make fun of that. I don't know. Well, I'm not from this country, I'm from Ecuador, and when I learned that word, it was a different meaning, and then I learned that word is also part of this amazing holiday. So it was hilarious for me at the beginning, but not anymore, because now we're celebrating our amazing teachers in this country.
Yes. Okay. I'm looking down because I'm connected to our live stream for... Whoops.
Something happened.
I just turned my camera on. I'm connected to our live stream for the video. And so if you're here with us for our live video, please say hi. Where are you watching from? And please share any of your experiences, your questions, your comments. We'd love for this to be an interactive and dynamic process. That's why we do this live. We really appreciate it, and we say hi. Hi, David. David just watched this webinar in Spanish. We're doing a repeat right now in English.
Yes, and we are doing it in English. We've been doing these webinars since March, right when we started with this pandemic. We thought that the best way of helping our teachers, to support our teachers, is to share some of the tips and tricks, some of the good things, the good practices that you can use in your classroom, and also to hear from you, because we've been developing a lot of different content because of all of the ideas that you are sharing with us. So thank you so much for being so proactive in all of our webinars in Spanish or in English. So thank you so much for being here with us. Mm-hmm. And thank you to Andres, who is in Ecuador. He's helping us sharing all of the content in on different platforms. So we want to thank Andres because he's always with us, sharing the what's happening with Teachers Who Take, what's happening with all of us in so many different platforms. Okay, so should we start now?
Yes. Okay, good. We're here.
We're going to ask some questions. So if you're here with us live, we would love to hear from you. And if you're watching this later, and if you have any question, if you have any comment, please go ahead and do it, because we're always going back and see what's our community saying. We want to have this conversation with you. And if you're now enjoying this holiday, that's okay. Just come with us later.
Yes, come watch the recording. Okay, so we're going to get started. Learn to read, read to learn. So first of all, I want to think about, have you heard anyone say, I can't read?
I can't read. You know what? I actually, I was very surprised when I hear this the first time I was teaching math through games in this community. And I remember some of the teachers not being able to read and say, like, I can't read.
It's not really something that people just share, like, oh, I can't ride a bike.
It wasn't like that.
I can't cook.
It was a whisper from there.
Right, because it's almost assumed that everybody knows how to read. Everything that we share, for example, all of the communications that are going out for these changes of our new school year is sent through email, or check our website. and people send texts. And so everything really relies heavily on reading. So what problems or challenges can you think of related to reading that people might have experienced or they know of other people? Thinking about literacy or just students learning how to read. What are those challenges that we know that exist around reading? Go ahead and share with us if you're here live. We want to see what you think of. We were just doing this in Spanish, like Christina mentioned, and some of the challenges that came up from our participants in our Spanish webinar were saying that they, one of our participants' neighbors, ladies, did not know how to read, and so they would bring over their mail, and this woman watching our webinar would read, had to say out loud the mail so she'd know what it was, if it was a bill or anything important, because she didn't know how to read that.
Yes.
So there's that level of dependency of, I can't do this by myself and I have to find other people that can help me do this.
And David is saying that I can't read is not the problem is not understanding what you're reading, and that's true. Thank you so much, David, for sharing this with us. Don't worry about your English is very good. That is a huge problem, right?
That's also true, and we're going to get into that because it's really complicated. All these things that are involved in reading. So sometimes, like David says, you can read, but you just don't know what you're reading. But if we think about people, if we go on to adults, you know, students that don't know how to read, and we'll talk about that, but they just end up falling more and more behind.
Yeah.
But then they graduate or they quit school, and now they're you know, responsible citizens in the world. And if they don't know how to read, then first of all, lots of companies will try to take advantage of those and have certain clauses that people don't read, and or you know, the way that they present something and you can't read it.
And we've heard so many stories about people who signed documents and they didn't even know what they were signing. So, you know, it's so complicated, and we teachers, we have this amazing power because we can show our students how they can read. And it's so important. It's so important for when you're little and then when you're an adult to do so many different things. And now, you know, we are like very, very close for, I'm thinking about, you know, voting for a president. And now you have all of this information coming in your way, and some of this information you have to read. What happens with the people that can't do that?
Right.
You know?
Right, and it's even something could be as simple as going to a restaurant, and if you can't read the menu, what are you going to order? You're not going to just ask, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this, because there's this huge level of shame that goes along with this. And so what we're trying to do today, and part of our webinar, is trying to break that shame so that people can get the help that they need, and that teachers do feel supported in order to really show those students that we're not going to let them stay behind, and we are going to try and focus on meeting them where they're at.
Yes, yes.
So let's think a little bit about, how do we learn to read? How is it? How does that work in our brains?
There are two theories, right? Or two ideas of how you can do that. And one of those is that reading is a natural process, like learning how to talk. What do you think about that? What do you think about this theory, right? Reading is a natural process, like learning how to talk.
And in this, the idea is like, if we just put a bunch of books around a child, whether at home or at school, then they're just going to learn to read.
I'm just going to grab this book, and I'm going to grab this one because it has a robot, and I love robots. So, yeah, so
you can look at the pictures and all of a sudden you know how to read.
Yeah. All right. We will not share anything about this theory yet.
The other theory
suggests that reading is a sequence of strategic guesses based on context. So I'm gonna guess.
So it's like,
Basically.
I don't know what this means, but I understand the rest of it, so I'm just gonna guess. And I don't know what this means, and I'm gonna guess.
And you know, my first language is Spanish. Okay, I learned English when I was an adult because I was trying to learn English since I was 5 years old, and it never really happened until I actually came and lived here. But I did a lot of guessing.
That's true.
A lot of guessing. But some of those guesses were really bad. I mean, were really bad guessings. And not just talking, but like at reading something and totally missing the context because I you know, my guess was not the right one.
And that's a good point, but that's you being, you know, a strong reader in your native language and then trying to translate those ideas into another language.
Thank you so much for saying that. I do feel like I am a strong reader.
Strong
should be
reader.
with my eyes.
Yes. Okay, so what we want to do is show that maybe these theories aren't quite right. That research now is showing us that reading is not a natural process. If this were the case, then, you know, all of our ancestors' start of humanity would be reading because they would naturally pick this up. But it's not. And it's not a guessing game. It's not just, I wonder, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. It's a code. Language or reading is a series of rules and formulas. It's a code of how do we combine this and how does this work, putting this together?
And I'm thinking now about, we just have our webinar in Spanish that was talking exactly about this, but in Spanish, it's not that complicated. I mean, it is complicated, but it's not that complicated that English or Chinese, let's say, because when we were living in China, oh my goodness, that was crazy, right? Like,
yes, you're right. And we'll get into that because it definitely has to do with the language. But if we're thinking of a code, well then, this could be reading. Let's read this. Read it.
well, shoe, way, spiral, arrow. I don't know what's that.
Finger.
Finger, come, there. I give up.
And this is, you're basically trying to associate pictographs, right? You're trying to create a representation, but, you know, how do I know, why is this an A? It's a rule. You've just learned it. You've memorized it. This is an A.
Yeah, definitely.
And so if we look at reading, this is basically the written representation of spoken language, right? And so first we need to learn our letters. A, B, C, D. Many kids can sing the song, but maybe they don't even know how to point them out,
Oh.
right? So you can learn the song.
Yeah, well, memorization is not a bad thing.
Music's
but then
fun.
we get into what David was saying, the understanding the meaning of this word, right?
Right. Whoops, my phone's gonna fall. Okay. And then, Christina, you did your dissertation on this. Why don't you talk about this?
D, P, B, Q. Which one is which one and why?
Oh, I think I was supposed
mean-
to do
It's okay. It works.
Right.
It still works.
B.
Well, yeah, it's even better if I do it like this and then I just go like that.
Right, this is the same drawing, the same written form, but if I flip it vertical or horizontal, now I have new letters.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily work for other things like an S. Well, actually, an S flipped is kind of like a 5. And so that's confusing because that's letters and numbers. There is a lot of confusion with how do I form and in uppercase and lowercase, what is the name of a letter?
M, the W, yes.
And we always need to know letters because we have to spell things, you know? What's your name?
Christina.
How do you spell it?
And then this is a little bit more complicated because I have to memorize this in English, right? Christina. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was like C-R. E, no, the I love you. Okay, that's my connection with I
And
love
that's
you.
confusing because the same letter exists in Spanish, but in English we say I, and in Spanish you say
E,
but in English this is E, and in Spanish this is
E.
oh, but English this is A. So you can see once we start to mix letters and mix languages, it can get really complicated.
So if you have students whose language is different than English, you can empathize in this side, right? It takes some time until we actually understand the difference and we memorize it. The same way as we did it in Spanish or Chinese or whatever is your language, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So understanding that, it actually helps the student making, if a teacher knows the difficulties of learning a different language, really helps the student.
I'm involved in all these different travel things and also language things. And I saw one post that somebody put like, I know I sound like a really confused 2-year-old, but I'm actually really intelligent in my native language. And that is part of it. I mean, reading here is even more complex, and adding that on top of learning a new language is kind of like going back to childhood and learning it all over again. And with the letters, we need to know the sounds that the letters make.
Hi, Marlene. Thank you for being here with us.
All right. So with the sounds that the letters make, there's a lot of rules, and English is really confusing because it actually has 4 linguistic roots of how English was formed in our history, whereas like French or Portuguese or Italian or Spanish is a little bit simpler in their origins, and so they're more phonetic and the rules have a lot less exceptions. So
the exceptions.
the exceptions. But even let's just think about this. What is this letter?
Oh.
All right. So if I write this word.
Oh, I love this. No.
Okay. Let me move this.
And I always want to say no, but it's no.
No. And then let me add a T to it.
Not.
Oh, it's not note?
No.
Oh, wait. This is note. Now I have an E on the end that actually makes no sound. And then let me put 2 O's. Now, what's that sound?
Boot.
And now let me change the last letter. Now, what's that sound?
Book.
Hold on a second. I have 1 letter. And now this is O, A, O, U, There's a lot of different sounds with using 1 letter. English is really complicated. A lot of people don't know this, even if you're a native English speaker. We say, how many vowels, or what are the vowels? And everyone's going to go, A, E, I, O, U. There's 5 written vowels.
Those are the names of the vowels, which I didn't know that
Those
before.
are the names of the letters.
The letters, yeah, I'm sorry. When I was in my English class, I don't know what year in university, and then my English teacher, talked to us about this. I was like, what is going on? I've never heard this in my life.
Vowels.
He's saying, there's not only 5. I was so confused about this. But I think because I got that...
Oh, but I didn't say it yet. So there's not only 5.
How many?
There's 14 vowels in English. 14 sounds. Vowel sounds, which are combinations of different vowel letters. And yet that's the pronunciation system. It's very complex. And if you're learning English as a non-native speaker, it's even more complex.
It's all fun though. And I'm always wondering, how do we learn? I mean, our brain is so amazing.
Yeah.
All of the connections that we do with so many different things to learn a word. It's amazing. And I think if all teachers knew about this, it will make more sense for them also when they are helping their students, right? Because this is not just shouldn't be just for the teachers in elementary school.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't be.
And we're all fascinated by this. There's these different games and letter things, and as adults, we still are playing these things or have fun with it and rhyming and stuff like that. And so, in songs, right?
Yeah.
So, we have to learn, once we have letters, we have to make combinations of letters. And so I can put a P and a H together in English, and that's okay, and that can make a F sound,
Which is not the F.
which is also the same as this sound. Whoops. But I can't put like a G and an X together. That doesn't work. That's not a word. That doesn't form any words, because then this is going to help us putting all these combinations to now form words. And there's lots of different types of words
And exceptions.
and exceptions, but there's like nouns and pronouns and adjectives and verbs and adverbs and prepositions and articles and all these different words.
What's the word that you can think of that it doesn't sound at all in the way that you write it?
Oh,
You know, like
Yeah.
for me, there's this crazy word that I'm always talking about because I don't even know how we do it.
What is
You
it?
know which one is that?
no.
Okay.
Oh.
So what's your word? This is my word, okay? So if I'm reading like in Spanish, this is ahuesome. Ahuesome. I'm gonna make it like kinda in English. Ahuesome.
Awesome.
But then I learned that no, this is awesome. Oh. So all of this is not okay. And then I have some, but this is not either. So it's just that.
Awesome.
And I'm always amazed of all of these crazy
Here's
words.
mine.
Which one is your word?
And English has a lot of borrowed words, so mine is actually
Oh my
a
God.
really crazy word borrowed from French, and it's queue. So this is like if you're waiting in line or there's a queue, in order to you have to wait for
How
something.
would you read that in Spanish?
It's like you just say the letter Q, and the rest of those letters
Yeah.
don't matter.
Because all of that
It's
is
just
not-
Q.
That's it. In Spanish, that would be que güey,
Okay, wait.
but it's just cute. What's your word? What's that word that you're always amazed about the way that you write it and then how you pronounce it, how you say it? Okay, just send us your word. All right.
Okay, and so then we have words. We start putting words together. We get phrases, lots of different types of phrases, subjunctive phrases, conditional phrases, temporal phrases with time, and then we put those phrases together, and now we have sentences or questions or exclamations. And then we put those sentences together, and now we have paragraphs. And then we have texts. Could be poem, book, essay,
This is
a
Mozart.
giant book.
Yeah, this is the.
And this is just how many combinations of 26 letters.
Oh my gosh.
That's it.
Marlene says beautiful. That's her word. Beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
There's so many vowels stuck right into each other. E-A-U, all there.
But E is supposed to be E and it's E. Okay. I
It's
get
not
it,
really a
Marlene.
T, it's like a D, beautiful.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful word. It's a crazy beautiful word.
So all of these considerations, but that's the representation of language. But now we have to make sure we understand what am I reading. And this is what David was saying at the beginning. Hi, Vero. Thanks for being here.
We are talking about the importance of reading. Learn to read because later you're going to read to learn. So this is our webinar, Vero. Thank you for being here with us.
So in this case, you can read, like David was saying at the beginning here, you can read something. It doesn't mean you understand what you're reading. And this happens for some children. If they read it and they can say it and it sounds all nice and pretty, but are they really understanding it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And for example, you guys could read Chinese right now. I'm going to
Let's
write
do
it
it.
in Pinyin, which is the Roman letter version of the Chinese characters, because written Chinese is a whole nother thing, like you were talking about. You know, we're so used to the Roman letter system, which is the same letter system used in a lot of these Latin languages Italian, Portuguese, French, English, German, Spanish. All of them use the same letter systems, and maybe there's some little accent marks or squiggles on them. But then Chinese is a completely different system, and you don't actually even put them together like Russian or Greek. It's just each symbol is its own word.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm going to write it in the Roman system, which is called Pinyin. And if you could read this, I don't have the accent marks on here, but let's just say you had to try to read this knowing our English pronunciation system, and you would say,
Kuai Dian.
okay, you read Chinese. Good job. You know Chinese. You can read Chinese. But what does it mean? If you don't know what this means, it doesn't matter if you can read it. We have some students like this. This, by the way, means quickly. So if you're like, Kuai Dian, Kuai Dian, Kuai Dian, it's like, hurry up, come on, quickly.
Okay, you can actually just say Kuai Kuai.
Kuai, Kuai.
Yeah, but yes.
So it doesn't matter. We call this hyperlexia. We talk about somebody that's illiterate, but you can actually be like hyperliterate, where you know how to read a whole bunch, but you actually have no idea what it is you're reading. And that's also a concern. So let's take a look at the baby.
Oh, the baby.
Hi, baby.
Yes.
Baby here is 7 months old,
Yeah.
and he is crawling.
We're going to ask this baby to do something that we know he can do it. We know.
All right, baby. Now, good job crawling. Now, jump over these hurdles. Jump over them.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
Hey, do you think that if I actually have the hurdles down, the baby's going to be able to stand up? And
Oh,
run
maybe
like
they're
that?
too tall. Yeah, let's just
Maybe they're too
lower
tall.
them down. Okay, baby. Now jump over them.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's ever going to happen. No. No. Because the baby is just learning how to use his legs, arms to strengthen the back of his body and his neck. So if I'm actually asking him to stand up, it's going to fall over. Right?
Right.
Okay.
So why are we showing you this baby and asking him how to do hurdles? It's because sometimes the expectations of our education systems or our government bodies that are setting up the standards of what students are expected to achieve actually aren't aligned with development. I could ask this baby to do hurdles, and I can even change the hurdles, and I can pick the baby up and lift him over the hurdle, and yay, he's doing hurdles.
No.
But not really. So I can say that children need to learn how to read at 3 years old.
But that's not going to happen. Because the last time that I checked, our brain actually didn't do any upgrade, right? We didn't have any upgrade in that way. Like, okay, from now on, since 2010, all of the babies now have this upgrade in their brain, which means that when they are 3 years old, they're going to be able to read.
No.
So how do you think the government, and not just in this country, but in different countries around the world, they decide to put these standards in a lower age? I mean, they're supposed to higher in this, like they're putting these standards high, right?
No, it's like,
What is
Oh.
it? How do they make that decision? I'm always
it's a
in awe.
competition, and they're just saying like, oh, well, our students your students can read at 5, our students can read at 4. We're better than you.
I'm 100% sure that teachers completely disagree with this, right? Like this competition is not going anywhere because we are telling our students to learn a lot more without processing anything. If you don't know how to read, because that's the base of everything, that's the columns, is that how you say it?
Yeah, the pillars.
The structure of your house.
Foundation.
If that is not good, if that's not as strong, what's going to happen with that house?
Yes.
It's going to collapse. And it's going to be this horrible thing. Okay, I went too far, right?
That was
Okay.
very passionate.
Okay.
Passion for learning.
Passion for learning, yes. Because, you know, if you understand who's in your class, if you understand their level, if you know how to teach, which I know teachers know how to do that, then hearing that you have to do all of these other things just to prove that the standard is working, I don't even know why. It's just hurting our students.
So if we think about reading, a lot of students start at 3 years old. Even before that, where, you know, parents are introducing their kids to the alphabet at 6 months old, you know, like, this is an A to a little baby. But they're exposed to this from birth, basically. And they're learning how to decipher this code, right? They're learning the rules. They're learning how this combinations work up through 3rd grade.
Yeah. And we talked about this in our last webinars.
Yes.
What do kids do? They imitate adults. So if I am reading, then my child will want to do the same thing because my child is in awe with me. So she will like to do what I'm doing, right? That's the first thing. That's the first
yeah,
thing.
let's get there. So we're talking about, you're so excited. She's jumping ahead to the strategies.
Same thing happened in our first webinar.
I know.
Same thing.
All right, so the point I was trying to get at here is that reading is complex, and kids are learning for 4 or 5 years of how to read. And then there's this jump, there's this shift in our education systems. And from that age on, their focus is on reading reading to learn instead of learning to read, and that's the title of our webinar. So now they're in 4th grade, and all of a sudden we're stopping practicing the rules of how to read, and all of a sudden you know how to read. So now you're going to read to learn everything that you have to learn.
But it's more complex than that. I mean, I have few words, yes, of course, but then there are so many words in this book, and this book has a lot of pictures here, but it still has a lot of words there. So, you know, I still need more help with this.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that?
Okay, now we're at the strategies. Okay, so the thing is if we're getting into 3rd grade and a child is at a kindergarten reading level, or if we're in 4th grade and a child's at a 1st grade reading level, they've got 3 or 4 years to catch up with to be at the same level of where the other students or the expectation is for that grade level. Are they able to recuperate 3 or 4 years in 1 year and still stay and follow along with that year's expectation? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
And we can see how complex it is. And even if I try to push it, the brain needs time to develop. This is a long process. I could push all of this at them. It doesn't mean that their brain is going to make all those connections really, really fast.
I remember many years ago working here in California, tutoring students and part of the one system. And I got into this girl house, and she's in 4th grade, and she doesn't know how to read. I'm supposed to be helping her with math. She doesn't know how to read. And I asked her parents, so why is she not reading? And the parents said, like, well, teacher said that she will catch up. She will catch up. But when? Because she's been like that for 4, 5 years already in the school system, and she's not catching up at all. And I'm trying to teach math, but math now at that grade requires
a lot of reading.
So it was very challenging because I end up teaching her how to read.
Yeah.
But I never learned that, actually.
Right. Well, it is crazy.
It's complex.
And it is complex. And a lot of times we see students, instead of like showing and just saying, I don't understand, or you know, I can't read, they're not going to say that. And then they're going to learn, the strategies they're learning are to be quiet and don't speak up and don't ask questions. And they're just going to be more and more forgotten in the system. And a lot of times we see that these students even have this paralyzing fear anytime that there's words, and especially if they're asked to read out loud, which is a whole nother process. And we're going to talk about that in our next webinar when we get into a couple more specific strategies of how to support reading with students.
Yes.
But like, even if they have something, and it even could look pretty fun, you know, you open it up and all they see are these little words, and there's a lot of words on each page. And they might like looking at the pictures, but sometimes just the fact that there's words is paralyzing.
But the other part of this is that if you're, and I'm sure the teachers who are here with us, you're doing an excellent job in your classes. I know that. There are teachers who are not doing that. So the environment is not the right environment for the students to say, like, I have a question. I don't understand this. I need help.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have the right environment, then yes, you're gonna be the child in the corner. And maybe the teacher doesn't even care. So we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we have more kids who don't know how to read, their world is not going to end up in the best way, right?
It's true.
So we really need our students to learn how to read, and then with that they can learn more and more and more.
So a couple strategies we're going to talk about right now, and thinking about, and we want to talk about virtual learning and what that looks like, but thinking about this fear. And books are scary, and I hate reading, and I don't like to read, and all this time we have forced reading for our kids. You know, even our nephew, he has to read 20 minutes a day, but that's so hard to determine, because just the fact that you're reading 20 minutes could be very different for this student or this other student. What are they reading? Are they reading with somebody? Are they getting help when they don't understand something? Are they just sitting there and staring at a book for 20 minutes and not actually understanding anything?
Yeah.
It's really hard to measure something like that. But what I like to introduce are wordless books. And kids are so shocked by this. Adults too. And the idea behind this is, let's engage first with the concept of a book with pages that you flip, with removing any expectation of reading. There's no reading involved. Let's just look at the pictures. Let's make up a story and see what's going on. This is one of my favorites. This is called Chalk. That's the only word in this book, actually. And so in this, we can see...
Do you want me to help you?
Yes, please. That's it. There's just pictures. And so we see these kids walking down the sidewalk, and then there's this dinosaur, and there's a bag in his mouth. And what's going on? Let me move this light up so it's not so reflecting. And they're looking in the bag. And she's, it's chalk. And whatever they say, everyone can create their own story. Oh, she's going to draw. She draws a sun. And then...
The sun!
What happened?
It's magic! That's a word right there.
The chalk is magic. Whatever you draw, it's going to be real. And so then, what would you draw?
Yeah.
Let's make our own book. And they could draw a book, and they could tell the story. And we are using the same concepts of understanding a sequence, and we're inferring about what is happening without words. They have the language, they have the spoken words, they just don't have the reading skills yet. Let's get them excited, and then gradually we can introduce the words.
And now that you're saying, let's get excited about this, right? Reading. And then maybe you have a person who's reading for you, but it's so boring.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
hold on, Siri, read this to me.
Should I read this to you? Okay.
Read this giant Mozart book.
Okay, I'm just gonna go to this. Chapter 17, England. With the 7 years' war concluded, travelers once again crossed the channel, restoring business, social and artistic exchanges. John Russell, 4th Duke of Bedford, who had played a significant part in the peace negotiations in Paris, had not yet returned home.
So boring.
It's boring. This is the book that I'm reading. Okay, well, that's one thing. If I want my students to read something, I need to know what's something that excites them. I'm not just talking about little kids, right? Students in high school, middle school. What's something that excites them? What's something that motivates them? If I know that, then for sure this reading is going to be better, okay? We talk about this so many times. Not everything should be fun. Not everything should be enjoyable. There are certain things that we have to do and not boring. We just have to do it, like memorizing multiplication. How do you call it?
Multiplication table.
Tables, right? We just have to do it. It's boring. We do it, and then it's magic. So there are certain things like the rules that we have to memorize, but then with that we can read a fun book. Wow, RoboCat, there it is. So this is a cool book. But I think Serena wants to read one of her favorite books, which you probably know about this. This was kind of new for me when I came to this country. But I love this.
She didn't know about Dr.
I love
Seuss.
this. This is cool.
This is one of my favorite books. And I use this book with all of my students, whether they are 3 years old, 13 years old, 23 years old, 43 years old. I always use this book because books don't have ages, and it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy them. Just like games, you know. I say that humans have this desire to play. Why are there casinos? That's playing for adults. They just win money. But we're playing, and so we have this desire to connect and reading. And I use this book in a variety of ways, and I love it because it rhymes and it's really silly. And so, like fox, socks, box, knocks. And we could do it in different ways. I could put a metronome, which is the piano timer, tuck, 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 and they have to say the words on the timer.
And then faster, faster,
and we do it faster. We have to put a beat, and so like if they got to one part, like even in high school, they love music, right? And they see all these different TikTok videos and things about making beats with their pencils. And so if they had to do this, they had to record themselves or in a group, and they had to create a song to it. And here's a new trick. Mr. Knox sucks on chicks and chicks on fox. Bricks on blocks and bricks on blocks. Bricks on blocks and knocks on box. And then they're like tick, 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 tick.
Can you read it now like you're sad?
Oh yeah, and so that's a good one.
Yeah, go for it. Very sad.
And here's a new trick, Mr. Knox. Socks on chicks and chicks on fox. Fox on clocks and bricks on blocks. Bricks on blocks and knocks on box. But this is a concept, and the idea of reading to another person, especially our students, should not be something that ends at 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. That we need to hear information, and the information that we have is in text form, and so hearing that read to us is going to allow for a completely different level of processing. Just like we hear the news, or we listen to the radio, or we listen to the TV, or we listen to a video on YouTube or on our phone. We can hear somebody reading a text to us, even if we're not even following along. It doesn't mean we're not processing it.
It's so powerful when you do that. I mean, if you're reading, have my book, that's one thing, right? Like I can hear you, but okay, that's how you pronounce the word. That's how you said, okay, I can understand that. And also because with the tone that you're using, you're guiding me through the meanings of the words. That's the other part. But also, if I'm not reading and you are just reading, I have all of this time for complete imagination. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're helping me. So this is not like you're saying, this is not just for little kids. My students in high school, we can do the same thing for them, right? Okay, I'm going to read for my students. I want them to imagine. I want them to just focus on me, because we're talking about doing all of this using a computer.
Yes.
We are in a virtual classroom. So how do we do this with our students now that they are on the other side of this small computer?
Right.
So it's a huge challenge. How do we do it? I can read for my students and then have that space where they feel very comfortable. So maybe at some point they say like, I want to read now.
Right. And we're going to get into this on Thursday, like we mentioned, but thinking about the virtual space, there are many advantages that we can think about, especially with reading, of how can we now capitalize on the situation, and thinking about what are some things that maybe were more challenging in the physical classrooms that now could be more attainable, like having guest readers. It's something that's really special for a lot of students, thinking like, you know, oh, Johnny's dad came in and read a story to us, or, you know, Mary's grandma read a story to us. It's really cool. It probably doesn't even matter what the story is. It's just they get this experience from a different person. And so now, instead of having these family members or community members come into the school and they have to fill out the guest form or have to coordinate a time and here and there, they're at home. And the child's at home. And the class is at home. So they can just pop into the video and share a book with the students.
Of course, we still have to think about, the talking with the teacher and all of that.
Yes,
But
yes.
but it is true. It sounds like an easier thing to do now. So let's take advantage of that. The other thing that we can take advantage of is if I have one of my students is having some issues with this reading, well, I'm gonna give this student a different type of book.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody has to know that. So this is what I love about virtual learning. Like I can actually do this one-to-one. I have 40 students in front of me, 30 students in front of me. Sure, most of them are going to be following this book. But then I have Serena, I have, I don't know, some of my participants here, and they need extra help. Well, guess what? I'm going to find these books that are going to be just for this specific student. So we have a lot of good things that we can do right now because we are in this virtual learning. And no one else has to know about that, just this student, this family of this student, because we are going to help him or her to go to a level where she feels comfortable.
Right.
Maybe they are like 4 levels below, but this is the time where we can actually help them.
Yes. And thinking about what were the strategies that we used in the classroom when we were in our physical classrooms in school for reading. Like, for example, if there was a certain time where they had to sit and read a text, and then after that time passed, we would come back together and try to process it and talk about it as a group or in small groups. We can still do that virtually, and it's really important that we don't lose those aspects, because having that dedicated time is going to allow for that student to then have to understand, I can ask questions about this if I'm not getting it, and my teacher is right there. And also the teacher can have all the students' face on their screen. It's just a quiet time. We could have some quiet music. They're reading. We're going to put a timer up, and the teacher can look and see, who's understanding, who's doing this. And that's another important skill.
Yeah, it is. There's so many things that we can do now. We have to take advantage of this virtual learning. So many things. It's still challenging because we have to make sure that our students learn how to read, because then the world is going to open for all of them if they know how to do this. But we still have to use this computer to do that. So we will talk about some strategies and maybe where to find some books for your classes in our next webinar. But for now, we just want to thank you for being here with us. We know this is Labor Day and you're probably celebrating with your family. Thank you for being here with us live. And if you're watching this later, if you have any comment, if you have a question about our webinar or some suggestions for future webinars, please don't hesitate and send us a text or go to any of our social media to let us know what you think about us.
All right. Thank you so much. This is our webinar, Learn to Read, Read to Learn. We're going to go do a continuation of this with reading strategies for the classroom for all ages on Thursday. We hope to see you there.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.